who came. It's a special event, and I'm going to be the host of the FARBRENGEN. In a second, I will explain what a FARBRENGEN is. But first, I hope you all saw the in the ad. We said that there is a need for everybody to prepare some kind of a l'chaim. Uh, it could be anything alcoholic. We don't have a lot of requests here, but hopefully, if everyone could just have next to their computer a glass with something, if it'll be non-alcoholic, we won't tell anybody, but at least something to say l'chaim on. So we will start this gathering with a blessing for good life and life itself, which is basically what we are going to talk about here. So I'm encouraging all of us to bring a l'chaim, and I'll explain a few words about what's going to happen this evening, and then we will start. So I see people getting up, so that's good. So most of the participants here are part of the Shalhevet program that includes American participants from all over the states, and Israeli participants, mostly students of Rav Steinsaltz. But thank God, there are more and more Israelis who become part of this program. It's becoming a program that is bigger than only the Steinsaltz community, but it's all in the with the light and with the passion of Rav Steinsaltz. We are all students of his, Rav Steinsaltz Zichrono Livracha. This 2 days ago, we marked 6 months to his passing, which was a devastating news for all of us, and we're trying to gather ourselves together. And Shalhevet, I think, is part of this effort to continue his legacy. And so the Shalhevet program is continuing, and probably most of you have started to make a personal connection with your chavrutas. You started to know them. We became friends. We became partners of learning Torah, which is amazing. And now we're getting to the next level. The next level is for all of us to connect together with our very basic common denominator, which is we all want Torah to be part of our lives. And that's a big thing. That's a huge thing, I believe. And what Rav Steinsaltz taught us is that we can learn Torah, that's one thing, but a person that Torah, in every sense, it could be any kind of studying Torah, a person that the Torah doesn't touch him and changes him and changes them, doesn't matter, of course. If we are changed by the Torah, then something is happening. And a FARBRENGEN is a time to talk a little bit about that, becoming a different person. Not only learning through our minds, not only feeling through our feelings, but actually going one step further and talking about that in a personal level. That's what a FARBRENGEN is. We gather together and we talk about the basic issues of being Jews, being connected to the Torah, and being connected to God. So that's what we will do this evening. The theme that we're going to talk about is connected to Tu Bishva, which was just last week. And in Tu Bishva, we celebrate the trees. And the trees are growing all the time. They're growing and they're bearing fruit. And Rav Steinsaltz spoke all the time about how we as Jews have to grow. We have to grow more and more and more and never stop growing. And I think that's a basic issue. That's something that we should all talk about, even if it's the most simple and obvious subject, and even if it's the hardest subject. Maybe it's something that seems like it's so obvious, but we tend to shove it aside. The question, are we growing, and how are we growing, and where are we growing, and what kind of fruit are we trying to bear? So that's the theme of this evening. And I want to pass the microphone, so to speak, first to Rabbi Michel Falk. Rabbi Michel Falk is the head of the Steinsaltz Yeshiva in Tekoa, which is the base to all Shalhevet, to all of the Shalhevet, the base for Shalhevet, for the Beit Midrash, and for all what we do. That's where we do all this programming. Just before Rabbi Michel will start, we will hear a nigun from our dear friends in the Tekoa Yeshiva, in the Steinsaltz Yeshiva. And a nigun is a way to open our hearts. If anybody knows this nigun, this tune, this Hasidic tune, you're welcome to sing along with your microphone closed, of course, and to feel how our hearts are opening. And right after the nigun, we'll hear the opening of the FARBRENGEN from the words of Rabbi Michel Falk. We can't hear anything here. I think I'm not the only one. Thank you, Naveh and Shiloh. Thank you for this music. Kol hakavod. Thank you. In the next nigunim, everybody are invited to join, to sing, even to dance, whatever fits you. And Rabbi Michel, let's start with a l'chaim, maybe, Rabbi Michel.
L'chaim. L'chaim, everybody.
L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim.
We have a rule that when we say l'chaim, everybody's allowed to open their microphone and hear the l'chaim. So we will all say together. L'chaim, l'chaim.
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 L'chaim. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Okay. Thank you very much. Nathan. Toda rabba. Yeshar koach. It's been hard work organizing this event, and this event comes after a couple good months of hard learning. I want to thank also Rabbi Meni, who joined us this evening. Rabbi Meni Even Yisrael, the son of Rabbi Steinsaltz, that is one of those who's pushing us and not letting us rest. Thank you, Meni. L'chaim. Rabbi Pinny, it's thanks to you and your great community that we're here. Yeshar koach. Toda Rav Pinny. And of course, thank you, Naveh and Shiloh. I miss you guys over there in the yeshiva. I hope I'll be able to come and sing together with you guys very soon. In the meantime, it's pretty challenging over here in Israel. And thank you for all of those that came to join us this evening from Arizona, from New York, from New Jersey, from Washington, from Canada, from South America even, and Acharon Chaviv from Israel. So, L'chaim, everybody. I want to start with just a couple words about how unique this gathering that we have here. For us, it's this evening. For many of you, it's still early Sunday morning. I think that in many ways, when I'm sitting here in my house in Jerusalem and I'm reading the news, if it's regarding the relationship between us, fellow Jews in Israel, and if it's a relationship between us, Jews in Israel, and those of us that are living in America or in other places around the world, there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of fights that I think in many ways come from just the fact that we don't know enough about each other. It's much easier to fight when it's somebody from the other side of the world, if it's somebody from the other city, if it's somebody that's not from my family, if he's not a good friend of mine. And I think in many ways what we're trying to do here this evening and in the Shalhevet community is to learn together, is to be together with no, it's just not a question, it's irrelevant to what synagogue am I affiliated with or what temple I'm affiliated with, if I'm a Republican or a Democrat, if I'm ultra-Orthodox or Reform. We're all coming together to learn Torah together and to try to pay attention a little bit more to our soul. And I hope and I pray that this, as part of the big legacy of Rabbi Steinsaltz, that we all are part of in different and many ways, that now is exactly a half a year from his passing. I hope that we will continue on. The Talmud states that Yaakov Avinu, Jacob our father, never passed away, because his children, his students, continued on his legacy. And that's what I'm praying, and that's what we're trying to do together. We want our people to know. We want our people to pay attention and to take their soul seriously. And I think it's very unique to find all of us here today. It's a Sunday. It's not in Israel. The students from the Yeshiva, they don't need to join this FARBRENGEN, but we're all here because we chose to be here and because it's important for us. We want to be together, and we want together to learn and grow. And that's our spiritual growth that we're taking seriously. King David in Psalms says a beautiful phrase, Chaver ani lechol asher yereucha. If I will try to translate that into English, with my broken English, I apologize. I am friends to all of those who are God-fearers. It is not a question of what party are you part of? What club are you part of? It's a question of, are you God-fearing? Are you connected to your soul? Are you connected to heaven, to God? And King David comes and says, that's what makes a difference. Those are my friends. I think in many ways, we can say that there's so many different clubs that we all are part of. There's wine connoisseurs that have clubs for wine, and there's a club for golf, and there's investment that they have a club for investments. And in Israel, there's so many clubs around politics. There's one club that I think is still missing in many ways. I think we are still missing a club of those that are interested together to put an emphasis on their soul, on their spiritual growth. And I think that's what we're trying to do together. And that's why we're not interested whether or not you're from Israel or from America, if you're 60, 70, 80, or maybe only 14, we're all part of that club. And that's why we got together today. If I just a little bit talk about the Tu Bishva idea, I think there are many parallels between the trees and us human beings. I'm sorry, but I need to just mention a couple stories from my dear Rabbi Steinsaltz. I think one of the first memories I have from Rabbi Steinsaltz was his garden in the German colony in Jerusalem. And he was so proud of his garden. We came over to visit him. It was Shabbat afternoon, Saturday afternoon. And we came to walk with him to the yeshiva that used to be in Jerusalem. He was supposed to give a talk, a speech to the students. And I, as a young student, I was told that you could come in and walk together with the great rabbi. And as a young student, that sounded like a big experience that I can't say no to. And I was expecting a lot of divrei Torah, a lot of thoughts on the parasha, on the Torah, on the Talmud. And I meet Rabbi Steinsaltz. It was almost one of the first times I met him. I still didn't really get to hear him much or get really close to him. And he starts showing us the flowers. At the beginning was the flowers and trees of his garden. And then as we're walking from his house to the Mekor Chaim yeshiva, on the way just goes on and stops every time he sees a new flower, a new tree, and starts analyzing its leaves and its fruit and its flowers. And I was absolutely amazed. I was confused, actually. I mean, what is this all about? It continued on that when many times the students from the yeshiva would come and ask for advice from our dear rabbi, one of the ideas that he liked so much to give us as advice was go plant a tree. Go plant a tree and slowly, slowly see how that tree grows bigger and taller and gives fruit and gives more fruit. And that was his advice, because I really think the rabbi believed there's a special relationship, a special connection between our spiritual growth and between what we can learn and see in trees and fruit and plants. If I would try to analyze that a little bit more, I want to offer just two short ideas. I think one of the fascinating things that we find with trees and with fruit is that you could give the tree as much water as it needs, and you could give the tree as many vitamins it might need. But if you take the sun, the air, the light from the tree, it just won't grow. It will die. People sometimes think that trees grow because of the water and the dirt and the minerals that we give. And it's actually very surprising that the sun and the light are so much more important than the minerals and the water. It's not just a question of, okay, so maybe we could give some light and it will be a bigger tree. It just can't grow. It can't stay alive without that light. I think in many ways, for some reason, we human beings think that our spiritual growth is similar to the light of the trees, and it is not so necessary. And we actually don't realize that that spiritual growth is so crucial for our whole being, for our growth as a whole. That means it's not just a dessert. It's not something that's just nice to have. It's something that if we don't give it our attention and energy and really our effort we put into that, we're just not full human beings. We're missing something very, very basic in that element of living as Jews in this world. I think that in itself is a very, very powerful idea that if I take and I understand deeply, I think it's a life changer. That means if I understand that my investment in my spiritual growth is something that is a must, that in itself already could change the whole story of who I am and how my life continues on. So I'd like to say a l'chaim for that. But just before I end, I just want to add one short thought that I had a couple years ago after looking at those trees one winter in Jerusalem. It was a very severe snowstorm in Jerusalem, which actually does not happen so often. But because it was such a severe snowstorm, many, many trees broke because of the snow, the heavy weight. And I remember after the snow started to melt, so slowly, the city started to cut down all of those branches that broke, that were in the streets and were on the cars and on the sidewalks. And I'm watching the city as they're cutting down the branches, and they come to one tree and they actually cut all of the branches completely. And they even cut part of the trunk. And I'm confused. You're killing that tree. So if you don't think that tree has any chance, so just take it out. And I thought they were just lazy. They didn't have the strength to dig out that big old tree. So they cut down the branches. As the winter ended and I started looking at that tree week after week, I started seeing small little new branches coming out. And slowly, more and more little branches started to grow bigger and bigger. And as I looked at that tree, a couple months later, or maybe it was the next winter, it was a nice tree. It maybe wasn't as big as it was at the beginning, but it was already a tree with many branches that started growing. And it was very clear to me that that tree will grow to be a very nice and big tree. I think in many ways, when we look at our trees, we need to remember that us as human beings, we also have many challenges in our lives. I think many times there are branches that break and we have struggles. It's not only about success. We don't always see fruits, and we aren't only successful, fruitful people throughout our lives. We have struggles. We sometimes have big struggles. I think we're all going through a big struggle nowadays. I miss my rabbi dearly, but at the same time, I have a very big belief, and I feel that that big tree that we're all part of is continuing to grow. And if we just have patience, and we also have the courage to work hard and continue on, that spiritual growth that we're all so hungry for, we will see continuing on. So l'chaim, and thank you. L'chaim. I want to hear all of you guys doing a l'chaim. Take the mic down.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, 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 l'chaim.
תודה רבה.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Michel. Thank you so much. And we're starting our journey on spiritual growth with this image of trees that you started. And I want to turn to Rabbi Meni, Evan Israel Steinsaltz, Rabbi Steinsatlz's son, and the head of the Shefa Institute, to share with us a few thoughts.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Hope you all hear me, you all see me, it's all good and lovely. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim, Rabbi Meni.
All right, this is just a chaser that you feel, have a good l'chaim, have another one. That's just coffee. So, first of all, thank you all for joining us in this time of day. I know some of you are waking up in inhumane hours of the hour of the morning, both in Scottsdale and the rest of the country. And I also like to extend my immense thanks to Nathan and his team, and Rabbi Michel and his yeshiva and the team around it, and all the work they do to promote the Shalhevet program, which I think it's outstanding. And it's a program that we will, as much as we can, we will push to do as much as we can to make as many chavrutas as possible. Many years ago, when I was young and I had more energy than I imagine, I was in a position in Geneva, Switzerland, in Geneva, Switzerland, I had one job, and my job was basically to teach. They have a private chavruta, exactly what you have now, a private chavruta, a private relationship with something like 50 people a week. I was very proud of it. You know, I woke up every morning, I had a daf yomi, I went through this, I taught whatever you imagine in your mind, I taught. And incidentally, the guy who took over my position is Rabbi Allouche, which not only enjoyed the same thing, but also succeeded to break my lovely record of 52 classes a week to something like 65. And I'm not resentful at all. Now, I had a very peculiar experience this weekend. And it took me time to realize, in a sense, how to digest it. So about Wednesday, I start feeling that there's a big shadow, a big cloud is sitting on my head, sitting on my shoulders, and taking a serious, heavy toll on my heart, like a bit of darkness. First of all, I'm assuring you that was not because the second vaccine I received. That was not the reason behind it. But I felt that something is sitting on me. And very quickly, I realized that what I'm dealing with, what I'm feeling, is that the fact that it's been already 6 months since my father passing. Now, the fact that I felt this is really not unique. It's my father. As a professional, I worked for him for the last 16 years. I work for the Steinsaltz Center. I deal with his writings, audio, video, and text 24/7. So obviously that it's on my shoulders. And I was actually a bit surprised that other people did not feel the same. So I was wondering if that's perhaps because of my hubris. You know, I'm still young, still allowed to have some kind of a hubris, some kind of a self feeling about what I am. But I realized it's really not about it. I miss the man. I miss my father. And when it comes to his work, I'm 100% confident that what we do, or what is emanating from this center because of him. And again, I would like to commend the Shalhevet program because it's exactly what he wanted. He wanted the individual to take the step forward. Part of the problem is, as Michel mentioned before, part of the problem is with the growth of trees. Talk about Tu Bishva, which is the holiday of the trees. So first of all, historically, I'll let you know that this was a really small holiday. It was very much meant for people who work in agriculture, who live in the land of Israel, who had trees that they cared about because they had to know when and how and so on and so forth. It became much more popular in around in the late 18th century, and with the Hasidic movement, this holiday had a major flourish. But when we look at a tree, part of the problem is that unless the tree has a major growth spree, which happened, we don't really see its growth. If you have a good, healthy tree in your backyard, the famous tree in my father's yard, you don't really see its growth. You know, it was growing amazingly 35 years ago, 45 years ago, it was really amazing. You know, you woke up one morning, it was a little broken, shriveled tree, and 2 years later, it was about 8 feet tall, and a year after that, it was about 30 feet tall. But in reality, since then, it's really hard to tell how tall this tree is. It's growing all the time, but I have no idea how tall it is. We don't see the growth. How you judge a growth of a tree? You judge a growth of a tree, usually, when you cut it down. When you cut it down, you know how tall it is, And if you're counting the little lovely circles on the stamp of the tree, you see how big it is, how many years you lived. If you charge the size, you measure the size of it, you know how tall it is. Humans are not like that. The opposite. When you cut them down, it's really finite. It's over. It's finished. There's no more growth there. And I think that is one of the unique lines that are explained in the book of Kohelet. In Escalatus, it says there that believing, when a person reflects the notion of death and the notion of life, referred there to the house of death and a house of celebration, the living, the living should put it to his heart. Take heed. Look around. Grow. The hardest thing to do, the biggest challenge we have about personal growth is not something that does appear to the outside. A growth of the outside usually refers to the size of my belt or my beard, my hair. It's not really something as internal. What we are doing, what we're trying to teach, what we're trying to talk about, the idea of let my people know, to bring knowledge to each individual is much more about your growth, about individual growth, about the growth. If I wake you up in the middle of the night and ask you, did you grow this year? Is that tree that you call yourself, that man is like a tree of the field? Ka'adam u'etz hasadeh, is that tree grew? I don't want to cut you down. I don't want to measure your trunk. What I want to know is, did you grow? I want to know that in the last, for me, the question was, when I asked this question, and I have to say that again, I will use my Hebrews again, did I grow in the last 6 months? And my answer is absolutely. Single-handedly, I know what I did. I know these things that I will never imagine I will do. Just the fact that I went to Minyan 3 times a day, in my way, it is beyond a miracle, and I should be commended for this for eternity. But in seriousness, the amount of learning, the amount of doing, the amount of project that been moving forward, from, as I said, we'll take Shalhevet Yai one side, and to the publishing the other side, we did whatever we can to bring the entire world, as my father said in the last will, Testament, I want you to join God of Israel, the people of Israel, the entire world, the world in its entirety, and the Torah together. I think we did it. We're doing it constantly. But it's because I know that my father, again, that's my case, it's my father, but he was in a lot of ways is everybody educator and everybody teacher and master. And he says, was today better than yesterday? Is today better than yesterday? And this is a question that most of the time, the only person who can answer it, the only person who can actually reflect on it and say the truth, is it's better or not? It's you. It's not me. I cannot judge it from the outside. It's not a tree that see down has a better fruit or worse fruit. It's something from the outside. So I wish all of you, in any way, shape, or form, in all perspectives, have a growth. Make sure that the next year, the next 6 months, the next day is better than yesterday. That the growth you see inside of you, maybe the people close to you, maybe the project you take upon yourself, see the growth. Feel like a growing tree. L'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. L'chaim, Rabbi Meni. Thank you.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Very good, dear.
Thank you, Rabbi Meni. And we will move on with more words from Rabbi Pinchas Allouche, the rabbi of Beit Tefillah community in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then we will go to an open discussion about this issue that touches all our hearts, I believe.
Right, L'chaim, L'chaim, everyone, L'chaim, L'chaim. So good to be with
L'chaim,
all of
L'chaim, L'chaim, L'chaim.
Chaim Alpini.
L'chaim, Michel. Good to be with all of you from near and far, only physically, because virtually and soulfully we're all one. I do want to commend Rabbi Michel, Nathan Gesundheit, Rabbi Meni, and Ariella Friedman in our community, Tamar Schneider, who have really, and so many others I know, who have really invested countless hours to bind us together in this Shalhevet program, which I know, as Rabbi Meni just mentioned, was one of Rabbi Steinsaltz's goals. And no doubt, as we gather here during this FARBRENGEN, Rabbi Steinsaltz is with us, smiling at us from the heavens. So we say L'chaim, not just to each other, but also to our beloved Ravadin. L'chaim, L'chaim, may we continue to give you much nachat always. L'chaim, L'chaim. I'm drinking at, 10:20 in the morning in Scottsdale, Arizona. I feel like an Irish man, but I wouldn't do it for anyone else but for this cause. So friends, in 2014, I believe, I was with Rabbi Steinsaltz walking next to Penn Station, and I felt like asking him what his favorite book was. I told him, look, Rabbi, you've written so many books. Do you have a favorite book? And I had asked him this question before. One time he asked me, well, who's your favorite child? And that was his response. Thank God we have 9 children, as some of you may know, and we don't have a favorite child. But this time, in 2014, as I was walking near Penn Station, I know many of you are from New York, so you know the exact area, but he responded differently. And he said to me, my favorite book is the next one. And that short yet powerful answer taught me indeed that Rabbi Steinsaltz was never satisfied with the achievements of the past, as many and as glorious as they were. He taught us to always look forward to the next one and to always grow towards the next one in order to achieve more and more. And as long as we are alive, it is a task to grow. Or as he put it differently in one of his books, to live is to grow. Otherwise, we really don't live. Now, it's interesting to note that on Tu Bishva, as we are celebrating this wonderful festival, we are celebrating trees during the season in which they seem to be completely dead. You know, most Jewish festivals really relate to something that is very particular, something that is tangible, and something that reflects the celebration. Here, Tu Bishvat, it's the winter. Even in Scottsdale, it snowed here last week. The trees themselves seem to be dry, seem to be dead, seem to be at the end of their journey on earth. So why celebrate Tu Bishvat during these times when we could be celebrating Tu Bishvat, the festival of trees? I don't know, in the fall, in the spring, in the summer, and other seasons in which their beauty is more apparent. But one of the answers I think reflects Rabbi Steinsatlz's philosophy. And that is, maybe that's why, by the way, he loved children. And that is that sometimes we see people and we think that externally, at least, they are dead, just like those trees in the winter. Sometimes we encounter a person and our instinct tells us, let's abandon him. I don't need this person in my life, as some others have told me. He's too dead, too dry for me. I want to connect myself to something much more alive. Tu Bishvat comes and reminds us, do not judge a book by its cover. While the tree seems dead, it is rejuvenating from within. It is regaining strength so that very soon it can flourish, blossom, and show its magnificence to the world. And this is true not just for our encounters with others, but mainly for our encounters with ourselves. Sometimes we look at ourselves in the mirror and we say, gosh, another day in this pandemic, another day in which I can't really grow the way I want to grow, another day in which I have to face life and all of its challenges and impediments. I feel dead. I feel dry on the outside. Comes again Tu Bishvat and tells us, no, you are not what you see. You are what you are in your deepest you. You are your potential. You are your infinite divine soul. That's who you are. That's who ought to be celebrated. On Tu Bishva, we don't celebrate the outside of the trees. We celebrate the inside of the trees. Their immense potential, their ability to, yes, be dead on the outside, yet to be so full of life on the inside. That's what Tu Bishvat is all about. I think that's what Rabbi Steinsaltz loved children. And in fact, I know he lamented the fact that the immense potential that you saw in children, as you sometimes see in trees, even in the winter, is somehow not fulfilled, because you see them as adults and you say to yourself, as Rabbi Steinsaltz would put it, what happened to all these wonderful children? To that innocence, to that potential. And by the way, the answer he said he asked this question all around the world. And the answer he had for that was that it's the schools that killed the potential of the children. I'm sure many of you have heard it. Now, I tend to believe that it is true. That's why maybe Rabbi Steinsaltz was a rebellious child in a way. In school, he had an agreement with these teachers. You don't bother me, and I don't bother you. Is that right, Rabbi Meni? Now, I told this to my children that try to do the same with their teachers, and it backfired somehow. So I don't know what his secret was, Rabbi Meni.
He did not keep to his side all the time.
That's right. But he saw that tremendous potential, especially in children. And unfortunately, sometimes it did not live to its full potential. But this is exactly what Tu Bishvat is about. Almost like what the Midrash says, that on every blade of grass, there is an angel that whispers to it, grow, grow, believing in the potential of that blade of grass. Again, Rabbi Steinsaltz believed in each and every one of us. And that's why he expected us to grow and grow and not be satisfied with our previous books, with our previous achievements, but always look forward to the next level, to the next book, to the next stage of our growth. I have to mention that this is, I think, why Rabbi Steinsaltz would be so happy to see us here come together. Because that's what Shalhevet does. That's what the study of Torah does. It ignites our soul and tells us that you are made not just of body, flesh, and blood, but you are made of an infinite soul that can always achieve so much more than you achieved yesterday. That's the purpose of study, to propel us to growth. And therefore, the Shalhevet name, which was, I don't know how it was chosen, but the Shalhevet name to me mentions that you are, we are like that flame that incessantly strives to grow, to detach itself from its candle so that it can achieve higher heights, even beyond the sky, even beyond that which we may think is a limit in our narrow-minded eyes. You know, I, as a rabbi here in Scottsdale, Rabbi Steinsatlz's pupil, I will say that I am amazed and truly inspired each time I encounter people who out of nowhere feel like that their lives have not achieved that which they could have achieved. People that may have millions of dollars in their banks, people that may have seemingly good established families, but they're not satisfied and they're always wanting more. I remember that, just to share a quick story, I remember telling the story to Rabbi Steinsaltz, and he cried. This was after his stroke, so his emotions weren't as restrained as they were before his stroke, and he cried with tears streaming down his cheek, listening to the story, and that's why I'm sharing it. But I remember visiting a man by the name of Showen Bash, who was a Hollywood producer for many, many years. And he retired here in Scottsdale, and eventually he was rushed to a hospice and his end was coming near. And the doctor at the hospice is a congregant of ours, Dr. Shiri Etzioni. I think many of you here in Scottsdale know her. And she called me, she said, look, there's this Jew here dying who wants to see a rabbi. Fine, I go, Showen Bash, room number 4, knock on his door, go in, and Showen Bash tells me, Rabbi, I want you to know, you're the first rabbi I've seen ever since my bar mitzvah. Now, it was astounding to me. So I asked him, I don't understand you, Showen. In America, you have as many rabbis as you have flies. How come you avoided us so much? And he told me, well, because I can't stand what you stand for. I said to him, then why do you want to see me now? I can leave if you want. And he tells me, no. Something in me tells me that I need to see a rabbi. I said, fine. We spoke. We put on tefillin. We said the Shema, and all of a sudden, Show and Bash started to cry. His soul was set ablaze. And then he shared with me his regret that he did not connect as deeply with his Judaism as he did at that very holy moment. The next day, Show and Bash passed away. But I knew that he passed away connected. I knew that he passed away as a grown man. I knew that he passed away not just as a body, but as a living soul. This was really all to the testament of Rabbi Steinsaltz, who taught us exactly how to do this, to connect to people on a soul-to-soul basis, because we don't look at people and see dry, dead trees. We look at people and we see a soul that yearns to grow more and more and more each and every day. So friends, I really want to connect with you today to ensure that we continue to grow this flame, to grow this Shalhevet Ka, this flame of God, not just outside over there, but also deep within ourselves, soul to soul, one mitzvah at a time, one study at a time, and together that fire of our soul that constantly grows will join Rabbi Steinsatlz's great fire and illuminate the world. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim.
Chaim.
I'm Rabbi Penny. Thank you so much.
L'chaim.
Chaim.
L'chaim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Just before we continue, I just want to say there are many new faces here. I'm going to post on the chat the ways to contact us at Shalhevet for all the different activities that we have. Also for next FARBRENGENs that we will hold once every few months. I hope the next one will be close to Pesach. And for whoever wants to have a chavruta, a learning partner, and for the classes that we hold once a month in different subjects in Torah. So I'll post soon our website if you want to know more and our ways of contact. And now, just before we get to a very short thoughts among the people, the participants of Shalhevet, we want to hear another nigun to open our hearts again. And I suggest that everyone could think, what does it mean to learn from the tree about spiritual growth, like Rabbi Michel and Rabbi Meni and Rabbi Penny put it. So may this nigun open our hearts and let whatever we hear sink in. Tekoa. Thank you very, very much, Naven Shiloh. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What a deep, deep nigun this is. What this was. This is a nigun from Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, if anybody heard about him. And now let's hear a few voices of thoughts. What is it about spiritual growth that comes into our minds? I want to invite Ariella Friedman, who's also an important person that helps us and organizes and is an important part in Shalhevet, to say a few thoughts.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, everyone. It's really been wonderful listening to everyone speak and reflect on Rabbi Steinsaltz and his legacy. And one of the things that has come to mind during this Farbrengen is actually the first few psukim of Tehillim of Psalms, which describes fortunate is the man who spends his days learning Torah day and night. He's like a tree that grows strong and yields fruits and endures for years. And whatever it produces, it thrives. And I just want to thank the Shalhevet program and everyone who's helped make this possible to help enable that for us. I'm thinking back, have I grown this year or these past few months in participating in the program? And I feel I most certainly have. And I hope that for many people, they feel the same way. And so I want to thank everyone who has been involved in helping make that happen for me and for so many others. And at the same time, I'm reminded in Pirkei Avot by Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, who would say, how do you describe, or what is it like someone whose wisdom is great, but his deeds are few? He's like a tree with many branches, but few roots. And, he'll fade or he'll fall with the blowing wind. But in converse, how do you describe a man whose deeds are many and whose branches are few? He's like a tree with strong roots, that even when the winds blow, he stands strong. And so I want to remind all of us that, learning is a delight, and it certainly helps with spiritual growth. And I love that. And to take our learning and bring it to the next step, and to turn our learning and our wisdom into deeds. As Rabbi Steinsaltz would say, the most important thing is our deed. And I wish for all of us that this is the first step, or maybe one of many steps in continuing our journey towards spiritual growth. So thank you to everyone who has made this happen. It's really been a pleasure to participate.
Thank you, L'chaim, L'chaim.
L'chaim, thank you, Ariella.
L'chaim.
Thank you so much.
L'chaim, L'chaim.
Leon.
Yeah. Also, thank you. I want to sort of respond kind of to build off of a lot of what other people have said. This idea that, and forgive me, I'm forgetting names at the beginning, but the first speaker, he was Rabbi Michel, I think, who spoke about, we talk about the vitamins and the water, but really we're talking about the light. I think we should even go a step further, that it's not just that the light is the essential part of the growth of the tree, it's that the tree then grows in order to get more light. That when we look at the branches and all of the different, and on the leaves, the purpose of all of that is to get more sun, right? So it's not just for the sake of the tree, the light is useful. It's the tree receives more light only so that it can then go and get more light. And when we look at the tree and we look at it so tall and everything, what we're looking at is the physical imprint of its quest to get more light. There was some light over here, it wanted to get it, so it grew over here. There was some light over here, so it wanted to get taller and taller. And when you look at, I think, a person, right, what you're looking at is their growth, is their quest to get more light, right? And so I think that's so important. And then there's this question of, but what do you do when there seems to be an absence of light, or when there seems to be an absence of growth, right? And there's kind of two different circumstances. So one, that I saw this thing that was going around Twitter. It's a line from Ram Dass, the 20th century, American ancestrally Jewish guy, who said, when you see a tree, and when you go into a forest, you see trees and they're all different shapes. And you just kind of recognize, if you see one tree that looks kind of like this, you say, oh, it didn't get enough light over there. So it grew that way. So it's a little bent, it didn't get enough light. And he says, but when you see people, that goes out the window. When you see people and they're crooked, or they're kind of mean, or they kind of miss something, you forget what we all know about the tree, which is he didn't get light there, right? And you shouldn't necessarily look at yourself that way, because you should try to be getting the light and amend yourself. But the reality is, we are beings of light, and when we don't get enough light, we can't give enough light. When we can't get enough light, we get bent, right? And so the question is, how do you then get the light, right? And if there's something in your way, right, you might lean around, come around the corner, right? There's also then the issue, as people have brought up, though, of the winter. You have a tree that's just in the middle of there's nothing blocking it, right? And yet the winter comes and all of the leaves fall off and it doesn't seem to be growing. And, Rabbi Allouche, you said, we shouldn't judge the book by its cover. We shouldn't say it's dead. It's not dead, but it is true that it's not growing in that moment, right? When you look at the leaves, or not the leaves, when you look at the rings in the tree, the reason why there are rings is because that's where in the wintertime it grows out, and then it stops and it gets dense and then it starts growing again. If you go to right on the equator where it's the same temperature all year and the trees grow evenly all year, there's no rings because it's just continuous, right? So even a tree that's completely in the middle, if there's a winter comes, all of a sudden it's going to stop growing. It's going to close down and it's going to shed the leaves because the air is so dry, right, that it needs to conserve its energy. It can't be wasting energy sending it to the leaves in the bad climate, right? So one of the things that's interesting about Tu Bishvat that I think you were bringing up, Allouche, is why does it come in this time, right, where we're in the middle of the winter, everything's barren, right? And I think it's this question of, well, what do you do when you're at the end of that season, right? When you're really in the middle of it, but things are going to open up. What do you do when the spring is going to come, right? And we have a way of speaking very optimistically and very simplistically about the spring, that it was the winter and it was so hard and everything opened up. But actually, to go back for a second, I'll wrap up in a second. I want to take this much time, but to go back for a second to this question about the light, right? And is the light there? Is it not there? What's the relationship of Michel that you brought up between the vitamins and the water and the sun, right? Even when there's the sun, if you don't have the water and you don't have the vitamins, it's like there's another tree in front of you. Even though the sun is there, because the sun is always there, you don't have access to it, right? And which is always our case of spirituality, right? It's not that life, it's not that God, it's not that spirituality isn't there. It's that for whatever reason, we don't have access to it. It's occluded, it's blocked, it's hidden in some way, right? And when the springtime comes, right, we have a way of speaking about it very optimistically, very simplistically. This is the great redemption. There was an idea that an English teacher of mine said once in a class, but I think about it. I've been thinking about it recently a lot, that there's a way in which the spring is actually the hardest time. It's actually the saddest time, because like the tree that drops its leaves to conserve its resources in the winter, when we enter the winter, when we enter a period where there's so much going on and we can't use our energy, we kind of shut down. We kind of hibernate. We kind of go to sleep. And when you wake up and you stretch and you open up, you realize what you lost. You realize what was there. You realize all of the sun that was there the whole time that you didn't have access to, that you didn't appreciate. And all of a sudden you feel, and I think if we're speaking a little bit, the Rabbi SteinsatlzThis spoke on the theme of loss, that sometimes it's when you open up and the sun comes back that you realize how long was the winter. You realize what wasn't there. And so the last thing I want to say to sort of bring in a message from the tree is that the trees don't go from bare to green. They they have the bud and then they flower. And the flower doesn't do photosynthesis. The flower doesn't give them sun, and it doesn't last very long. It's like 1-2 weeks, and then it blows away in the wind, right? But what they're doing is they're taking this period of being closed down, and they're starting to be sensitive again, and they produce something. They produce something new, something that's more beautiful than anything else they produce in the year, and something that has the potential to spawn new trees, right? Something amazing and something temporary. And from that, they're then able to open up into a summer, right? And there's something very powerful about that. And I think we always need to know that when we're coming at the end of a winter period, we don't need to go into the summer right away. Actually, we can spend the time reflecting on what we have, this new thing that this period produced, that when we thought we weren't receiving any light, actually we were receiving the potential for something new and beautiful, right? And we can create that, and then we can let that go, right? And it's always these stages of change. So that's what I'm trying to think about right now. We're not quite at the spring yet. God knows, like us, the world, all this stuff, right? But when the spring comes, it won't be a summer right away, but it'll be something beautiful. It'll be something unique, right? And the question is, how do we produce that? And then how do we let it go and move to the next level? So on that, l'chaim.
L'chaim, Leon.
L'chaim.
Thank you so much.
Wow. Wow. L'chaim, l'chaim. Nice speaking. Wow.
Wow.
Thank you, Leon. L'chaim.
So to close up on the last note, after all these thoughts, I think we have a lot of food of thought. I want to ask you, the chapter.
The deeds are the fruit. I'm sorry. I was going to connect to what Ariella said. The deeds are the fruit. That was like the whole big thing at the end. Sorry. I didn't want to leave that out.
Thank you. I want to ask you, the chapter, one of the highest editors of Rabbi Steinsaltz's books, to say a thought, and then we will close up with an end nigun. And so please, Judith.
Okay, shalom everybody. I think one of the ways of growing is to get different proportions on things, to get a bird's eye view on life, on the world. And that may be one of the main gifts that I received from Rabbi Steinsaltz. Whatever he said or wrote about, whatever it was from a bird's eye view. He was always so much higher up than anybody else I knew or heard or read. So it's like reading his essays, his books is like taking an airplane or climbing on a very high mountain and seeing everything from a different perspective, but without losing the importance of the smallest details. One of the life-changing experiences I've had was back in 1975. The rabbi and a group of friends organized a one-time ever seminar that lasted 10 days in Jerusalem, and that changed my life in many ways. I'll just mention two. One of them is we learned some Tehillim, chapters from Tehillim, from the Psalms, with a rabbi, and I had no idea that anybody could read the Psalms the way he did. Now we have his commentary on the entire book, so you can all enjoy that. But for me, it was an eye-opener. But I think perhaps the greatest shock that I received was on Shabbat. We had Shabbat together, and among the participants were Rabbi Steinsaltz when he was a baby in the crib, in the stroller, And the rabbi's good friend of Moshe Shapiro of blessed memory. And what I remember is that they just sat there together and were happy. It was just a Hasidic simcha. It was joy, the likes of which I surely didn't see before and very, very rarely after. And I was looking at them and thinking to myself, what is there in this world to be so happy about? I had no idea that people can experience such profound joy, and it was holy simcha. This was really a great eye opener, and it made my whole world swerve. And I don't know that I've experienced such simcha myself, but I know it's possible. I know it's there. So this is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judith. On this note of simcha, knowing
Chaim.
On this note of simcha, knowing that we can strive also to get higher and also to go deeper and also to just be happy. We will say goodbye. We will say goodbye with the nigun, with the last nigun. I want to say to all the chavrutas here that also just in the sense of learning, we're ending a winter. It's not easy. The COVID time isn't easy. And I want to encourage all of us to continue our learning, continue our chavrutas, go higher and higher. Let's see each other. I feel like we're starting here to form one of Rabbi Steinsaltz's big dreams, to form a community, to form a group of people who are, like Rabbi Michel said in the beginning, are searching and are striving for Torah. And I think it's a very, very big thing. So we're going on also with our personal intimate chavrutas, also with our classes every month on the subject that we're learning, and also with these Farbrengens. Hopefully the next one will be close to Pesach. Thank you so much for your dedication, for your learning, for your strive to go higher and higher. And may we all get all what we want, hopefully, get all the things that we need to grow and grow and grow, and hopefully also bear fruit. Kol Tuv, l'chaim, l'chaim.
L'chaim. L'chaim.
L'chaim, shkoyach, Nathan.
L'chaim.
לחיים.
לחיים, לחיים. לחיים, לחיים.
לחיים.
לחיים, תחייך לנצח. לחיים, לחיים.
לחיים.
Goodbye, everyone. Shkoyach. Thank you so much. Have a great week and a great day.
Chaim.
Thank you, L'chaim.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Meni.
יישר כוח, לחיים.
Leon,